First-person military shooters have been around for a long time now, and while they certainly have differentiating attributes, they almost all center around the same idea: the power fantasy of being in a combat scenario battling through enemies as either part of a specialized task force or an actual one-man army. Experiences like this were unavoidable when I was a teenager, with some of the most iconic games in the genre setting the precedent around that time. So maybe that's what drew me to Trepang2, along with its self-proclamation of being a gory, action-packed experience. In Trepang2, you play as a silent protagonist super soldier, Subject 106, who's freed from captivity and swarmed by guards that clearly want to keep you contained. Fighting your way out of the facility, you're taught the controls and mechanics Trepang2 has to offer in slowly escalating situations before being rescued by Task Force 27. The team and their leader inform you that the Horizon Corporation is responsible for your imprisonment and recruit you on their mission to take the fight to the corrupt megacorporation. While this is an effective, if not tropey, introduction to the game, the second mission then lays the groundwork for the narrative as you assault the Pandora Institute to rescue an undercover operative. As you continue on the path through the level, it becomes clear that there is more to what the Horizon Corporation is doing than meets the eye. The gameplay in Trepang2 can't be described as anything other than no-holds-barred first-person action. Your loadout consists of two main weapons and one type of throwable item that can be found throughout levels, such as throwing axes and various grenades. Trepang2 does not have ADS with all weapons, often limited to scope attachments, and the game is mostly designed around firing from the hip. While there are options for more stealthy gameplay, Trepang2 really shines when you're taking enemies head-on. As you engage in gunfights, you're able to quickly move around the terrain by vaulting, sprinting, and sliding utilizing a stamina bar that gets temporarily boosted when you defeat an enemy. This boost of stamina allows you to reposition and stabilize or push your offensive and overwhelm your foes. Enemies can also be grabbed and used as shields when staggered or approached from behind, and with the additional cloaking ability and focus mechanic that slows down time, you're constantly moving, disengaging, and eliminating threats throughout the combat arenas that make up each level. The atmosphere and focus mechanics are reminiscent of the F.E.A.R series, and I think it's fair to say there are whispers of modern Doom as you fight through waves of enemies and engage in boss fights. This fusion of elements makes for one of the most satisfying first-person action experiences that I've played in recent memory. Some mission areas are small, but you don't really notice through clever level design, pacing, or elements of visual storytelling that change an environment you may have already been through. While there are a handful of in-engine cutscenes, Trepang2 makes good use of tapped voice comms to push the story throughout missions without taking you away from the action. I think this was a very smart decision because it results in Trepang2 effectively highlighting its strengths while still managing to spin a narrative web that sparks intrigue despite the common tropes it utilizes. Speaking of tropes, there are collectibles hidden throughout the game, such as intel that provides additional world building, and weapon components that allow you to customize weapons both aesthetically and functionally. These collectibles are entirely optional, but can be hidden off the beaten path of a level to encourage the player to take a look around when there is a break in the action. And even though collecting log entries isn't anything new, I think Trepang2 does something noteworthy with their intel system. They stay focused and keep it brief. Through the combination of intel being at most a few sentences and mostly intended to provide additional lore around a specific level, these collectibles don't feel like an afterthought. While they do enhance the experience through a given level, they also can be completely ignored without losing any context, which I think is another example of the well-thought-out design that courses through the veins of Trepang2. There are many decisions that I think are executed well, which are noticeable through both presence and absence. For example, the UI is simple but still believable within the game and avoids unnecessary clutter. Things like minimaps and persistent waypoints, which I feel increases the immersion within the game world. At first glance, some of the level design may not be visually impressive, but often through acute creative decisions they become memorable. Some examples are as simple as moving from a clean, sterile area into sudden, exaggerated gore, and others are bordering on absurd, like utilizing the floating wreckage of a military submarine you just destroyed as part of your path toward an oil rig. There is an inexplicable charm to Trepang2, and I think it all comes together to strike a compelling balance between modern and nostalgic. While the time I spent with Trepang2 was excellent, there were still some issues that I found created friction. Sometimes during combat, my weapon would not fire, and I'd be left staring at enemies and clicking my mouse furiously until my weapon finally discharged. I could never quite pin down what exactly was causing this behavior, but I did notice it most often while moving in and out of a sprint while my focus was active. The melee attack also feels unreliable at times, as it functions more as a locked-on attack rather than a persistent hitbox. I would often be too close to an enemy for the melee attack to work, and have to back up before the melee attack would register, pulling me back into the enemy. But the most prevalent issue is that the sound mixing in Trepang2 is not as polished as the gameplay. While the actual volume of the sounds was never a problem, there were many times throughout the game where sound effects such as firearms discharging or explosions were noticeably distorted. This effect would be exacerbated if multiple enemies sustained fire at the same time, as the gravelly cacophony would drown out everything else. I'm no sound engineer, and it didn't affect my personal enjoyment of the game, but it was impossible not to notice as I played more, especially as the conflict with Horizon escalates toward the end. Small complaints aside, I still think Trepang2 is a fantastic game that puts action first while not sacrificing other elements of the game. The gameplay is smooth, satisfying, and while I don't think the story will win any awards, it's still executed well and believable within the world that Trepang2 weaves. It's a game that feels like a perfect portion that isn't too short or overly long, and it's definitely a game worth checking out. Thanks for watching, take care, and remember, keep having fun.